Okay, we're going to get started. Welcome to the January 12th, 2023 Conservation Commission meeting, our first meeting of the new year. And we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
The flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Sue is going to take the minutes from home, so I will do roll call for her. Melissa Sharples.
Here.
Sam Kenny.
Here.
Jeff Goldnoff.
Present.
Tom Jones.
Here.
Colin Lawson.
Here.
Colin White.
Here.
David Bell.
Here.
Ellen Snyder here. And I know Chris Blackstone and Juliana could not make it. So so because both of them are full members and are not here, I will appoint Tom and Colin as voting members tonight. So very good. All right, so we have two sets of minutes. If anyone had a chance to review those. So we have the November 2022. I had one change on page 4. This is in the discussion of the Bald Hill easement monitoring. Jeff, you could see if you agree with this, but the last two sentences, it says they both noticed that there had been some tree harvesting, but the boundaries were respected. I think that should be tree harvesting by a third party, but the boundaries were not respected.
That's true.
That's I think what was meant for that.
That's, yeah, that would be appropriate. Well, there was a timber harvest on two sides. The boundaries were respected.
Is that what that refers to, you think, there? That could be.
I just got this.
Okay.
As you
No,
know, I just
you're
got the
right. I had
packet
forgotten
this
about that. So maybe we should leave it as is. It doesn't actually mention the other cutting, so that probably refers to that. So
Yeah,
okay, good point. All right, so let's scratch that. So no change. I'll retract that. Any other modifications to the November 10th, or any modifications to the November 10th minutes? If not, motion to approve as written. Second. Anybody want a second? Colin? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any abstentions? Very good. All right. No, December 8th. Let's see. I don't think I had any changes there. Anybody have any changes? Okay, motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Abstentions? Sam is abstaining. Okay. Very good. All right, back to my agenda. Okay, well, we are fortunate tonight as our guest speaker to have Lindsay Butler is our Newmarket town manager. And I think you're the first person to be in the position. Is that correct? Great. Yeah, so we invited Lindsay just to welcome her to the town and share a little bit what she does in the position, and maybe we can chat about how we might collaborate on things. So if you want to go up there so we can have you on record. So yeah, so feel free to tell us about yourself and what you do for the town.
Okay. That one wasn't on. Okay. Probably should have checked that before I started.
That's all right.
Oh, well.
You're good.
So, yes, prior to being on the municipal side, I was in consulting, working at Wright Pierce. I actually was the project manager and did the design for the Bay Road culvert while I was at Wright Pierce. So that kind of leads a little bit to my background and expertise, being stormwater management, hydrology, hydraulics, general municipal infrastructure, but definitely an emphasis on the stormwater side. Dabbled a little bit in wastewater and water in my experience, but stormwater management is the focus. I have taken on the role of MS4 General Permit Program Manager here. I've got my background experience in consulting and in Salem is with the MS4 programs and regulations. So that's a little bit of my wheelhouse as well. I don't know what else to really get into. It's probably best to maybe open up for some questions, discussion, or did you want me to kind of talk about projects?
Yeah, maybe some of the projects you're involved in now.
Okay.
And, yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
so definitely supporting the Department of Public Works in various projects and the Environmental Services Department as well. A lot of coordination with the Planning Department and site plan reviews. I haven't fully delved into that at this point. I know there was a third-party consultant that had been doing that for years, and I'm going to start getting involved as new projects come in, doing those in-house. And in terms of some kind of independent new projects going on, working on a development of a stormwater asset management plan or program. We have a stormwater management program plan developed for MS4 requirements, but general infrastructure, the Environmental Services has a wastewater asset management plan and a water asset management plan, and we should get a stormwater to manage that infrastructure in a way that we can be kind of proactive with management, maintenance activities, and upgrades as we go into the future. So that's kind of a big project undertaking. I've also been involved with a development of a facilities master plan that we're going to be getting underway pretty soon. And that kind of covers a broad spectrum.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Can you stamp plans?
I can, yes. I am a licensed professional engineer in New Hampshire and Maine and Massachusetts and Rhode Island, but those don't really matter so much for here.
Yeah, right. Oh, that's great.
Yeah, great for the town. Any other questions? So I know we have several things we've chatted about, particularly around culverts.
Yep.
And we looked at the Ash Swamp with Jeff and Bart and yourself in terms of, because there's a lot of turtle crossings there. And then I mentioned the one on Neal Mill Road.
Yep.
It's a culvert that's kind of perched, and it seems like might be an opportunity there to do some upgrades if we have that opportunity. Can you talk a little bit about any kind of strategy we have in town, or how we should go about looking at those? And
Yes. Current strategy is a bit reactive in that if there is a washout or failure, then we do some repairs, with the exception of the Bay Road culvert being a very significant upgrade. But that had its own, I guess, its own unique motivation with the project partners on that one. So part of the stormwater asset management program that we want to develop is we need to incorporate culverts as part of our system. We don't currently have culverts mapped, and we don't necessarily have condition assessments on all of them. So the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services, DES, has an effort underway that they started at the beginning of last summer, I believe, to evaluate culverts in the Seacoast region. Newmarket is one of the towns that's included in that effort. I don't know, I haven't been able to get in touch with the specific program manager on that effort to find out if that work in Newmarket has been done, or if it was done last season, or if it's going to be in this upcoming season. But they will be doing that for incorporation into the statewide database, and we'll be able to also bring that in, incorporate that in our system GIS and our system management. So not a whole lot in a plan in the past, but once we get that data and information, that will be part of our plan going forward, and that should incorporate condition assessments and some structure that we can use for ranking and prioritizing culverts for replacement.
So the system is called the SAIDS
Yes.
database?
Yes.
And I worked closely with them for years and years, and probably have surveyed over 10,000 culverts in the state. And it's a great data set to have. Where I think it really comes in handy is potentially getting funding that's non-state, but state as well, but specifically federal funding that could come in. But a lot of that's based on the resource, and I guess that's my question is there an inventory of the resource, the wildlife resource that we have in the town? Has anybody ever undertaken that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Not in relation to stream crossings and culverts, no.
Yeah.
The
But
effort,
even the turtles, Jeff, I think, did anybody do any specific research on that?
The state had done some research.
Well, they've
in the
done
past.
some
They put some
turtle-
like traps out and counted
Yeah.
some in certain places around town.
Yeah.
But we don't have that information, whether we can get it is, but, you know, you might be able to get that, but.
So you're going to be
I'll inquire.
working on a management plan going forward that incorporates stormwater?
Yes, the asset management plan. It's a plan that would include an inventory of stormwater assets. So that's all the infrastructure.
About what's the timeline on that, do you think?
That's a good question. We have received authorization, or we've been awarded a grant from New Hampshire DES to put towards development of this plan.
Okay.
We haven't actually received the grant yet. We're in the process of developing a scope of work so we can submit our application, which is due March 1st.
Gotcha.
And then after getting the necessary approvals and authorizations and signatures and everything, we should be able to begin that work. So I'm anticipating maybe mid to late summer, we'll be ready to go in developing that plan.
And developing the plan. It'd
And
probably take about a year.
I would guess maybe a year to two,
Wow.
depending on how much inventory data collection we need
Yeah.
to do to get into it, to get a good foundation.
Did I hear you, someone say that you're the first town engineer?
Yes,
Okay,
there was not currently a town engineering
Okay.
position prior to me.
that's great.
It was just contracted out.
Yes,
I don't know if it was one person or multiple, I don't know how it worked, but,
I think multiple,
yeah,
depending on the specific need.
yeah, this is.
And
this is-
there will still be multiple engineering firms and contracts with engineering firms. I can't necessarily do it all, but I'll be able to be involved and help guide a lot of that work.
Well, I think I speak for the commission, we're very interested in the stream crossing, culvert, stormwater, and to how it relates to, you know, ecological health and balancing, you know, safety for infrastructure and humans, but also protecting, you know, natural resources. And so anything that we can be involved in or help with grant writing or whatever, I think we'd be pretty interested in staying in touch.
Yeah,
There is an opportunity to get out and do some of that culvert assessment under the SAIDS protocol. You can do it with volunteers, but the volunteers have to be trained.
Okay.
So I don't know if there's, you know, a group of volunteers that could be pulled together to do it. It's pretty simple once you go through the training to do
Mhm.
it. Pop levels will allow you to get the dimensions that you need and that kind of thing. But, you know, might be something to think about for this summer is to put a group of UNH students out there with somebody that's been trained and certified to collect that data and just get it done.
yeah. I want to get in touch with the program manager that's working on that effort currently to see where, if they may have already done Newmarket and I'm just not aware yet, but if they're lined up for next year, then yeah, that would be good to know. I know Cheryl Bondi had been managing that, but she's since moved on to the trust fund, so I'm not sure who took her place in that, which is why I haven't been able to get in touch with anyone specific on where that stands currently.
Well, I can get into the backside of SAID, so I'll go ahead and take a look and see what data's in there
Okay.
and maybe just coordinate with you and
Yeah.
let you know what's needed and what's been completed already. But I have a feeling, I know I worked for Trout Unlimited, so we didn't have a high priority down here because there's not a lot of cold water fishery down here. So we were mostly working up north in the mountains, but we can see what's available anyway.
Okay. I will definitely follow up with you then.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, and I think if you're going to visit any culverts, I know we talked about trying to get out to Neal Mill, but I think, there's several people that might be interested. So just, we can stay in touch.
Yes.
Whenever your schedule permits.
Yeah, and we, on that note about the Neal Mill, the Environmental Services Department has purchased a new GPS unit, and they have iPads that they're using for their data collection on the wastewater and water side, and we in DPW have one old iPad that could be connected, but not fully functional, so we're going to look to get a couple of new updated iPads so that we can also have the capability to use the GPS unit. I was thinking when we had that email correspondence that we were a little better equipped at that time to go out and get that information, but turns out we're not quite there yet, but we're going to get set up to do that so that we can have more of that real-time electronic data collection and have it in a format that's easier to process and input into the overall system database.
Sounds good, yeah. Any other questions or? Welcome. Yeah, thanks for coming. This is great. I think we're all pretty happy that you're here, and especially with your background expertise. And
I'm excited to be here. I'm looking forward to getting into a lot of good projects.
Yeah, great.
Thanks for coming to talk to us.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, anytime.
Thanks.
Excellent, thanks.
Should I hang around?
You don't have to. No, you can feel free to stay or go. Yeah, don't worry. You can watch this on TV at home. I guess people do.
Bye.
Good. Okay. That's good. Good. All right, try and get to my finance report. Okay, finance report. All right, the Conservation Fund total balance is $133,653.29, of which $4,764.46 is the Richard Chanda Fund. So not too much, I don't think, went out or came in last month, just interest. We do have the outstanding, we're going to do the Piscassic River Loisel entrance sign, which I think is underway, and the Sliding Rock grant, which is basically in and out in terms of funding. So I think we're in pretty good shape. Any questions about the Conservation Fund? All right, General Fund. The balance is $2,475.58, and the only expenditure is the part-time salary for Sue for minute taking. And I think we're in pretty good shape. We do need to approve, we hire the Southeast Land Trust every year to do the monitoring of the Hilton Conservation Easement, and I did go out with them this past December, and they completed the report and sent the invoice, which is gone up a little bit, and it sounds like it's going to go up a little bit next year too. So the cost this year was $365.88. So I would like to have a motion to approve that expenditure, and then when we get to conservation easements, we can talk a little bit more about funding for monitoring and whether we want to bring it back in-house and all that kind of stuff. But we'll talk about that later, but we do need to pay this since we're under contract with them. So if I could get a motion to approve that payment to the Southeast Land Trust for the Hilton monitoring.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. And a second, Melissa, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, unanimous, thank you. And I have actually one request for $24.84. So remember that we put in a signpost for the 2 signs for the Piscassica Loisel property, and I had the 2 signs made with the map and description, but they need to be mounted on pressure-treated plywood because they're fairly big, so I had to buy a quarter sheet of pressure-treated plywood, which was $24.84. So I wondered if you would approve reimbursing me for that.
Absolutely. Make a
Motion by
motion.
Colin, second, okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And we are going to put those signs up as soon as the weather improves, so this weekend or next week. Thank you for that.
50 degrees tomorrow?
I know, if the rain clears. Yeah, it's
Insane.
really weird weather, yeah, so. Okay, we're moving along here. So planning board, town planner, Bart's not with us. I have one thing, but do you want to give us an update, Jeff?
We met Tuesday. I think the ADU proposal did move forward. It's going to be passed on to the town council. The only major change that we made in our last meeting was that we did limit it to 2 bedrooms. So
Was there a limit before?
there was not,
Oh, okay.
but the ability was there for the board to put a limit on the number of bedrooms in an
Mhm.
ADU, and it was capped at 2. And so that was the only major change we made at that meeting. I don't know if it's of interest to the Conservation Commission, but the only other thing we entertained really was a letter from the town council regarding potential historic district modifications for the current historic overlay district in town. So we did have a discussion on that, and Bart's going to throw something together to talk about at our next meeting. But other than that, the only other thing on the agenda was continued, and I don't know much about it anyway. I know that it's Cherry Hill area, potential building out there.
Okay.
And I think the town is actually, it was continued because the town was looking more into drainage with the applicant. So I'm not sure it's a stormwater thing. So.
Okay.
I missed the January meeting, by the way, the December meeting. So.
All right, great. Any questions for Jeff on the planning board?
I saw the other thing on here, the Connect to Protect initiative,
Yeah.
and I'm not sure what that is. Maybe they
Right,
talked about
so,
it in December, or
Yeah,
or
so
Bart
this was, since Bart's not here, he took the lead on this, but if you remember, the Connect to Protect are these maps that I don't know who all the partners were, the Nature Conservancy was the lead in creating these maps showing where the important connections were between existing conserved land and so for wildlife corridors, stream corridors, that kind of thing. So there's a website, connect-protect.org. That's the website, sort of the outreach page for that whole effort. And you can click on a town and it'll pull up the map that they created for it, basically GIS layers. They did the analysis. The maps are a little tricky because there's so many layers on it. I'm not a big fan of how they created the maps, but regardless, they also have an outreach team that was willing to, if you could apply, and they would meet with your community to help you figure out how to use these maps. So Bart submitted an application on our behalf. Sam had sent an email, and I had talked to Bart, and they needed 3 people from the town to be on the application, so Bart put my name and Sam's in with his. So the concept that Bart and I had chatted about and was this idea of, so these maps are really about the ecological connections, right? The corridors for wildlife and so forth, connecting conserved land. And the other piece that Bart and I have talked about is the connections for people, trails, essentially. So Bart's really interested in how we look at our existing trails and how we could find connections for people that want to commute by bicycle or want to just get out and have opportunities to safely bike. So we wanted to put the 2 together because we want to conserve ecologically significant areas, but we also want to look at opportunities for connections for trails and people. And so we thought we should really, sort of marriage those 2. And we're a pretty developed area, so we have limited opportunities. So we have a lot of sensitive areas. So we wanted to see if maybe we should really do this now when we're starting to lose any opportunities for connections. So we got accepted into this technical assistance program. So this team will meet with us for a couple meetings and help us refine our ideas, and if there's things they can help us with, they will. So the first meeting is Thursday, January 26th, just for an hour, 3 to 4 p.m., and it'll be Extension will be there, and several people from the Great Bay Estuarine Research Reserve, which is part of the team. So they'll just help, provide information that they have, and they'll talk to us about what we're thinking about and let us know if we're crazy or if it makes sense or if there's ways that we might be able to move forward on this. So
January 26th?
January 26th at 3 p.m. So we're going to meet here. And yeah, so if people want to join us, that would be
I'm looking
welcome.
for my phone, which I think I might have left in my car.
Oh.
But I thought that her email said the 26th, but the invite that she sent was when my Outlook accepted it was for Wednesday the 25th.
Oh, really? Okay, well,
Yeah.
we'll confirm. Okay, I thought it was Thursday the 26th. So
I
it's
know.
confusing.
She said both. She said Wednesday the 26th.
Oh, okay. Well,
which is
I'll
both.
confirm.
Oh.
Thank you, because I didn't
Yeah, so
catch
the
that.
actual invite she sent was for Wednesday.
All right.
So that probably is worth following up on.
Thank you. I missed that. So yeah. Yeah. So I think it's a neat opportunity to see if we can't find some ways to have these connections. So that's what that's about.
Do a limited number of people have to, can a limited number of commissioners attend to not create a quorum or something?
Yeah. So so I was
Just saw
planning to go. I didn't
interest,
know.
so I
Were you
thought it was,
planning to attend, Sam?
If it's the 25th.
If
if she
it's-
did mean the 26th, I actually probably can't go.
Okay. And you're interested, Tom?
Well, I am.
Yeah.
I am, yeah.
Yeah. I
If-
think we
if-
can have
if
3
there's
people.
room.
We can have 3 people, and we don't have to post it as a meeting. So. Okay. Does that sound good? If Sam and
Cool.
I'll check my schedule.
okay. All right. So we'll confirm the time.
It's the 26th again, I suppose.
Oh, no, I can't go. I heard the interest and I just thought I'd throw that out there in case a bunch of people decide to attend.
Yeah,
I wasn't
Yeah.
yeah,
noticed.
that's what, sort of what, my next question. If there's room,
Yeah.
I would like to, but if not, that's fine.
Yeah. No, I think that's fine. We want to have input more the
Well.
merrier, as far as I'm concerned. So.
It can always be noticed too, right?
Yeah, we've announced it, so. The only other trail, since it came up just recently, that trail-related thing, since we're talking about trails, I will mention is Bart and Mike Hoffman, who I think you're probably familiar with, used to be our building inspector. There's interest in potential trails out by the new Boulder Drive subdivision and connections between Dame Road and Bay Road. So they've set up a meeting to check that out, and I looped in Melissa and Colin because they both live out there and are familiar with that area. So you two are going to meet with
Yeah,
them
we're
next
meeting
week.
next 17th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's great. Thank you for being able to do that, because I got enough to do, and you guys know that area. So
So I'm really curious if there's a way to even expand that. There is
I'm
some
not.
conserved,
you know,
there is some conserved land toward Bay Road,
yeah, that other piece. I think you had come in one time a few years ago and asked
and
about that.
talked about that. And I've talked to the Cheney crew about potentially, doing a trail up through their series of properties that is beautiful landscape
On
up there.
The Schultz plot.
What's that?
The Schultz's plot out there.
Yeah,
It's pretty wet.
yeah, and there's a lot of trail opportunities, but they're not really interested in letting people go in and market. So they said, if somebody's out there, we go out hunting, is what he said. So we don't want people just traipsing through there. So they don't want it marked. But if people are walking it, they don't mind people being on it. They just don't want it to be an official trail.
Yeah.
I get that.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what you all come up with out
Do
there.
you have any money in the budget for leaf blowers for trails?
No.
Okay.
We don't do leaf blowing on trails. No, people have done that, and
Yeah,
it's
that's
kind
what I
of
was noticing that this year.
yeah, no,
If-
yeah.
If we're talking about sorry, go ahead.
No, well, I was just gonna say, I mean, I saw it done, and there was a period where the trails are really slippery when there's leaves on the trail, so,
Right, no, I understand.
if people did it once, but it's not supposed to be done repeatedly.
Yeah, we discouraged it years ago 'cause
Yeah.
someone was leaf blowing a lot at Piscassigly.
Yeah,
So.
someone was doing it again this year.
Oh, really?
I don't think it was once, I don't know if they're still doing it.
There was one thing. Is it kind of a discussion on trails at the moment? Because it was one thing I was
Yeah,
going to
sure.
mention. At Wigan Farm, I think it would be potentially a wise idea for the two slopes on the bridge to have some wire put down on them.
Absolutely,
we
yeah, we're
talked
gonna talk
about
about that
that.
when we get to Wigan Farm.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I meant to put it on before it got all snowy again, but
Yeah.
it's very slippery.
Yeah, I don't usually fall down, but I slipped on that.
Yeah, somebody else when I
And
was with
like,
slipped
whoa.
on it. It's very slippery. Yeah.
I was wearing rubber boots, but
We need
not paying
hardware
attention.
cloth and, yeah.
Yeah,
so
that's what I was
we'll get to that. Thanks for bringing it up, though. Any other trails kinds of things? All right, I'm going to jump to something else, but we're moving on to Riverfront Advisory. Sam?
Yeah, I'm kind of quickly trying to rack my brain a little bit here. So I wasn't here for our December meeting. So since we last talked, there have been 2 meetings, most recent of which was this past Monday, which seems a lot longer ago than it actually is. So really at this point, the town and having Lindsay on board is great, especially as another liaison to that committee and her experience with stormwater to kind of help with the the outfall of Moonlight Brook and that whole concept we've been talking about with potential culvert replacement in conjunction with a larger park improvement down there. The town has decided that there's a lot of funding for stuff like that, the next round of which comes with the Clean Water SRF program's kind of annual round, which starts in June. So basically the culvert design and advancing thoughts on what that needs to be is sort of being tabled for the interim to basically pursue other funding mechanisms to get money for it rather than having to pass warrant or expend town funds right now for it. So with kind of the hard engineering of the culvert, on pause, our other shift has gone to a Plan New Hampshire grant that Bart has been going after for a while. We have not, the town has not finalized its application at this time. However, those folks have seemed quite interested in holding a charrette in Newmarket for basically usage of the waterfront area. If anyone's not familiar with charrette, it's basically a stakeholders meeting for public at large, butters, committees like this, to kind of go and comment and listen to ideas being pitched for the waterfront and offer some input on that. So obviously that's great. The hope is that we can kind of finalize that approach and get those folks to come into the town sometime maybe around June. Rough timeline. Obviously we don't even have it formally secured yet, so that's just a guess at timing. But one of our thoughts on the committee at this point had just been, well, if we're going to get everyone together in June to talk about what they feel about the riverfront and some of the thoughts that the committee's been putting together, it'd probably be a good idea to start talking to people about what those ideas have been, because we have not really cast that net particularly wide over the last year or so. So kind of our goal on the committee over the next 6 months is to try to slowly start educating other relevant groups of people. So this past Monday we had both Amy from the rec department and 2 members of the Arts and Tourism committee come in and just kind of showed them what we were thinking, kind of got some feedback. Don't expect it to be the last conversation with either of those groups, but that's sort of the thought process at this time. Let's start talking to people so that then if we do have kind of a larger meeting come later this year, people actually are coming with some ideas and input to provide. So that's kind of where we're at. I think we're kind of largely doing our own little education campaign over the next few months, and that's probably what we'll be continuing to do.
Are those conversations captured in your meeting minutes?
They are. Level of detail, not so sure. If you guys want me to provide more detail about anything, I can. Also, I know for newer members, you probably weren't. I'm trying to think when we were here. That must have been November of 2021 at this point that we kind of presented the initial concept of what we're doing. So it has been quite a while. If either of you gentlemen would like to kind of talk to me at some point about what it is to kind of get you up to speed.
Is there anything on the town website that has a background on it?
It has not been posted. I don't think it's something that's being tried to be hidden or anything yet. It's just not something that has really gone out there. You know, in a nutshell, the town got a grant through the Great Bay Living Shoreline Program to look at the viability of living shorelines along Great Bay. Shanda Park was one of the 4 locations chosen for that. So we got to work with a lot of smart, knowledgeable people about putting together a living shoreline design down there and what that could look like, along with just a larger park improvements project. So there's a lot of kind of talk about that. There's been some good ideas. There's actual things on paper, but like I said, we haven't really gotten it out there that much. It's something we've talked about on the committee quite a bit. So that's sort of our goal over the next few months is start to tell people that aren't just us about what that plan is and why it is, and see what people kind of react to different portions of it.
Yeah, I'd love to catch up with you on it, Sam. So,
Yeah,
I'm sorry, what's your role in the town? Do you?
Conservation.
He's a rep to that committee for the Conservation Commission.
Yeah, so I'm the Conservation Commission rep for that. I think I've sort of fallen into the chair role of it, more just, I think everyone stepped back and I didn't get the memo. So like, it sort of is that in my day job I am an environmental engineer as well. I actually had the privilege of working with Lindsay when she was with the town of Salem, so I'm thrilled to have her on board here. She's a great asset to the town. So, so that's it. But I hold no actual role in town.
Does the committee have a staff person? Is Bart a staff to that
Both
committee?
Bart and Lindsay are kind of technically the liaisons to us at this point, because there's a lot of overlap with certain functions. So like the actual design and the Moonlight Brook stuff makes sense for Lindsay, whereas like the whole high level concept and planning and public education part is definitely Bart's arena. So both of them make an effort, which is nice.
I wonder if they could help get it, the information posted on.
Yeah, I can talk to them about it. I mean, there's no reason for it to not be. I think it's available through that Great Bay Living Shorelines program. I think they made the end products of all 4 of those projects publicly available.
Right.
So there's no reason it can't be. So outside of a general update, one thing that kind of keeps coming up as we talk to people and get asked questions about Shanda Park is I don't know if we want or really need to do anything, but there always seems to be some level of question of like jurisdiction and responsibility for Shanda Park, because it's like a town-owned property that the Conservation Commission has a role in, but then Public Works does stuff down there and Parks and Rec does stuff down there. So maybe just a conversation that could be started offline if there's any needed discussion there. But just there's always, I guess, some level of question of who's actually doing what and who needs to be consulted and who takes the lead on things. So it just kind of falls in a gray area if everyone's trying to do the right thing and not step on anyone's toes. But
And then nothing gets done.
But is the stuff that needs to get done getting done too? So.
Yeah, I think have you guys? I seem to recall looking at older minutes where it came up of maybe transferring the stewardship to somebody else like DPW. I don't know. Did you?
We definitely discussed it because when I first started on the commission, I think it was relatively new, and was it there when you were in your first?
Yeah, it's been there. It's been there a while.
And so the Conservation Commission was always doing stuff there, and like viewing and like trying to do projects like this, meeting with engineers, looking at how can we fix the retaining walls, what should we do over here? And the town, we kind of managed it and took care of it, and a lot of it was done by Fred Pearson, and his significant other at the time, and a lot of the upkeep and flower maintenance and keeping the place looking nice, essentially. But there was discussion to take over general maintenance. I think maybe similar, but not quite to the level of Shopmire Park, where that's basically completely taken over by the town at this time, and so the commission. But I wasn't on the board commission when it was created, and I know that was a commission thing, I believe, right? Like monies were donated for to create the park in memory of Shanda, right?
Yeah, well, and there's been additional monies, but it doesn't mean that we can't. I mean, I think it's who's best steward of the property, and it is a pretty intensive site for lots of reasons. It's got, so, and we're volunteers, and if there's a way to institutionalize staff in the town taking care of a place like that, I don't think that's a bad idea. So.
Yeah. And I don't know if anyone's really, like, if Public Works or Recs or really anyone's, like, jumping at the chance to, like, take that on, but I think it's just that thing of everyone's kind of doing the finger game.
Yeah, part of the issue for us, I remember, was that anything that they want to do is very expensive, right? You want to fix the retaining walls, those are all expensive. Just have an engineer come walk it, look at it, you need a fair amount of money. Like, what can we do through the conservation fund? And we didn't have people on the commission that were adept grant writers, right? And or even in the planning department necessarily for the purposes that we're looking for. So it kind of like we get an idea, we kind of bounce it around, we actually go look at it, then things would fizzle out. So I mean, I don't know how the people that created it would see it, but I personally am not opposed. I don't think I was opposed to it.
Yeah. Does anybody have any thoughts?
There were people with very strong opinions as to what should and shouldn't be done there. I know that, because there are people looking to do some things there a few times throughout the years to, where they could make money or keep kayaks. Different people are like, no, yes, and
So do you guys manage the kayaks as well?
The rec department does that.
The rec department manages the kayaks.
Yeah,
there,
and the commission gave the rec department permission to keep the 2 kayak racks there. I believe it's 2. I don't know if it's still 2, but.
So it picks up trash and stuff like that?
DPW.
DPW,
Yeah.
yeah. Just like DPW mows Wigan and plows different places.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit out of our, like, we have to approve people have to apply a permit to do stuff there. Like, we have to give the rec department approval to have their concerts in it.
Oh, really?
It seems a little out of our bailiwick, in my opinion, in some ways. So, well, what do you think we should put it more firmly on one of our agenda items, or talk to people like Rick and Amy, or?
It may be worth an offline conversation with them, but I think it's that concept of everyone wants to do the right thing, but no one's really 100% sure what that is. So just maybe there can be sort of an agreed upon approach or stewardship of what that park is, so that people feel like they know what they're doing and what their responsibilities are.
Yeah, we did that a little bit with Shopmire. I mean, at least there's a management plan, and we had criteria and so forth. But because even when we have these permits come in, there's no criteria, right? We have no way to say, go through some criteria and say, yes, this should be allowed or this shouldn't. We kind of just sit around and say, well, do we think it should be allowed, which doesn't. Maybe there should be a little bit more framework to
Direction?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time it was mostly, is it detrimental? A lot of the criteria we used to use was, is it going to be detrimental to the river or to the park? And a lot of it was to make sure 2 groups didn't want to use it on the same day, just kind of, but not that it's on a schedule somewhere, that for the public to view necessarily, but, that's kind of, yeah, I'm not even sure why it started that way.
Yeah, and the rec department manages the calendar. Like, they they could be doing that, and DPW could do the actual, which is kind of how, do the maintenance, and we could have some
Input.
on,
Yeah.
the ecological stewardship, which is kind of what our bailiwick is, right?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, personally, seeing how it's not progressed over the years, I guess I would say, since like, 10 years ago, we were like, we need to fix these retaining walls, and they're still the same. I think, creating a simpler conservation perspective management plan and passing it off, like Schottmeyer was done, I don't see how that would be detrimental to the original purpose of the park, which is kind of a memorial park for, I believe, right? So similar to Schottmeyer, but Schottmeyer actually is a little more rural.
well,
Different, one's an easement, one's a town-owned property.
Well, we can do a little digging around and talk to Rick and Amy and look at some of the original deeds. There's not a lot in the file on our origination. People like Richie Shelton might have the best
You probably would, yeah.
knowledge.
Or was it there when you were years ago? Was it a park at that time?
I think
Or
so.
was it in between when I
Yeah.
was on it and you were on it that it was created?
Yeah.
I don't know if there was something that came with the donation of the monies to create it that had a stipulation of oversight
Yeah.
or something like that.
There is
and
a
that-
line item in, yeah, I don't know.
And that's
I
why
don't remember.
I know that they tried to get us to zero out that fund, and then apparently more money went into it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's, Amy does the concerts, and then we want them to do accessible, she puts the portable toilet, and we want them to do an accessible one, so she's paying for that, but we do have that money so what is that money that we got? We would probably want to put that toward the living shoreline, but it's a pretty small amount of money, but it's seed money for a project.
Toward upkeep.
Yeah.
Like I said, Fred Pearson used to really
Yeah,
take care of that
I know.
place, and
Well, when there was the Heritage Festival, which was an annual kind of event, there was the boat rides, and we would help sponsor the pontoon ride, and it would all be,
we'd have a booth there.
we'd have a booth there. And
Yeah.
so forth,
Yeah, we did invasive species stuff one year.
Yeah.
Education. The Halloween haunt used to be down there too. So, I mean, for what it's worth, we just simply approve it,
Right.
and let them do that.
But if there's truly a river walk, then it's kind of weird to have this one piece sort of separate, like someone in town should be managing the whole river walk, and this is a part of it.
Yep.
I don't know. That's kind of my thought. Okay. All right. Well, we'll bring this back, and
Yeah, not an imminent need. No one's really asking, but it just seems. I think this is the third time in 18 months we've arrived at this question of whose actual responsibility is it.
sure.
Yeah, Richie Shelton would be a fantastic resource probably.
Yeah.
to see on that one. Is the Riverfront Committee inviting other boards to
Pretty
speak,
much,
to
yeah.
meet with them, like planning board, town council?
We haven't. Yeah, I mean, we have a town council rep, which is advantageous. We don't have a planning board. I mean, Bart comes, so he knows what we're doing.
Okay.
But someone can come from planning board
I could ask Bart for an update at our next
to
planning board
us,
meeting.
or ask Bart for an update. He's plugged in. He was at the last
Yeah.
one, so he knows the current status.
Yeah, maybe I'll ask him.
But that's sort of our goal at this time is just start talking to people, because yeah, if we are lucky enough to have the larger stakeholder meeting, we don't want people to show up and go, all right, well, what are we talking about?
Yeah.
Like, already know what the conversation's about and have some kind of opinions in mind.
Yeah, and there is the weekly e-news, so if you put something, you can either put it there or you can link it to it. So, I mean, I don't know what the audience is for that, but does everybody get the weekly e-news from the town?
I don't know.
Tim Kramen, who runs the IT stuff, he does it for the town. So it's basically comes out of the town administrator's office, technically, I guess. But it's kind of the news of Newmarket, and all the departments can put stuff in, and I can.
There's a link on the website. You can
Yeah.
sign up. You just put your email
The
address.
town
in.
website,
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
just sign up for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just,
Yep.
what's it actually called? The town newsletter?
Yeah.
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 Every Friday you get
Yep.
It has stuff in there about, fire department, police department, we put stuff in
Right.
there. Rec
Lots of
department has a
rec
ton,
department,
the library has a ton, the Lamprey Healthcare Center has stuff. I mean, he puts in stuff from other entities around that might be of interest. Very community oriented, lots of information.
Yeah, they
Great.
just overhauled it too, and it's nice.
Yeah, lots of, yeah. Good, okay. Very good, thank you, Sam, that was really good. And town council.
I'm not gonna match the time or effort that Sam just did.
Yeah, I
We're
was not really
grading.
intending that to be as long.
That was not meant
as
as a dig either. The only thing I would touch on is regarding the historic district. It's been brought to us a couple times now, and just kind of in a different way, the same as you were just talking about with regard to Shanda Park. You know, not sure where to start, but I think Bart is probably going to get heavily involved quickly. But to ID the area, and then what does it mean for the historic district, as far as I know some people have talked about making sure that all of the storefronts and anything that comes in stays the same type of, that it blends in with the rest of the community, the rest of Main Street. But it's not gone much further than the discussion phase at this point. And I'm sure it's something that will continue to come up each meeting. But other than that,
Is it just what is it? Is it just a Main Street? What's the historic district physically?
I'm not,
You know?
I have not seen what the outline of it currently is, but I think it involves majority of Main Street, but there's also some back behind Main Street type of that, but I don't know where that boundary is.
Yeah, we didn't have a map in front of us. It's the historic overlay district, so it's done by map and lot, I believe. The language I thought was the old mill, kind of the mill area, essentially, not
Spring
the mills
Street,
themselves, but
all
like
that
the,
area.
yeah, maybe, I don't know if it goes over the hill and down to,
Maybe even in New Village.
in the village, yeah, I'm not sure if it goes down there or
I'm
not,
not sure either, so
but yeah.
let me,
So what, essentially, town council provided us it's just a little snippet, piece of language to add to an ordinance, but they can't work that way. It's going to come from the planning board to the town council as a recommendation for a change in the ordinance. And so the way we left it, actually, if you didn't see, was that we weren't comfortable just turning that around. So Bart was going to, the discussion, it's very preliminary, but it led to, maybe under the architectural review and site plan, but not a site plan, but like just the architectural review of that portion of the ordinance may be something to begin to look at as a way to keep it moving forward. So very preliminary. Bart's going to come back next month and see. Yep.
I have another town council meeting next Wednesday, so I'll bring it up just to see if I can find out any more, if it's not brought up prior.
I'm sure Scott will.
I'm
Scott Blackstone will certainly
Yeah. Oh, certainly.
fill you guys in.
Very good. Anything else for council? All right. Energy and Environment Committee, Juliana is our rep. She couldn't make it tonight. I don't have any update from that committee if anybody else does. I haven't paid attention to what they're up to. All right. So we'll move on to conservation easement monitoring. So this is for sort of recapping last year, 2022. I have my list here, so I'll just go through. So as I mentioned, we hire the Southeast Land Trust to do the Hilton easement. Maybe we'll come back around and talk about that. The cost this year was, what would we approve, $365, and it sounds like it might go up a little bit. I guess it might be around $400 next year. And that's kind of what I've seen the going rate for people, other entities doing it. So if you want them to do 2 or 3, then, you sort of multiply that. So we can decide if we want to continue to have CELT do that one. It's the reason that one got farmed out to the Southeast Land Trust is because George Hilton was on the commission at the time. We acquired the easement from him like in early 2000s or mid 2000s, and he was on the commission, so it seemed a little bit awkward to be monitoring an easement when there's somebody on the commission, so it got farmed out to SELT. So they've been doing it for a while, but it's a pretty straightforward easement actually. There's not, there's a few issues, but they're not really super serious or anything. So it's more of a collaborative effort of, you know, working with Wynn on some things, Wynn Hilton. So, you know, we can come back around to see if we want to continue to have SELT do it, or if we think we have the capacity to do it for them.
What do we think the cost is? Is it manpower to get out there, or is it the preparation of the report?
I'd say it's both. I went out with the monitor this year. We were out there for maybe 2.5 hours, 3 hours, but they bill for 9 hours. So I think a lot of it is the follow-up report writing. But it's pretty, you know, what I was telling Melissa, that, you know, if there are some follow-up issues that need to occur, we still have to we're the ones that do that. And so if you're not familiar with the property, it's a little hard to, you kind of have to dive into it again anyway as the commission. So I don't know how I feel about it. I almost feel like, last year I was saying, well, I think we should farm out more, but this one actually is a pretty easy one to monitor.
So when he left the commission, we continued to have SELT do it because we're like, we have enough to do.
No,
and not
yeah.
necessarily the manpower to get it all done.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
it was one that was already under contract basically yearly,
Right.
so we just kept going with it.
And that's totally fine as well. So it's up to us. You know, we're the ones that have to do the monitoring. So yeah. And there was a few. There's one of the corner pins on the Hilton easement has been missing for a very long time, and it's kind of near a house. So that's the one where maybe next year we can
Well, maybe
try to find that.
when we get to
We can talk about it.
we have to go back out to
Okay.
finish, and maybe we could swing by there and look for that
Yeah.
one pin.
Yeah.
We'll need a metal detector.
Yeah, I
think
brought
it's-
one with us the other
Okay,
day.
cool. Yeah.
Found the right
Yeah,
guy.
I can grab one.
Very good. Yeah, I know. Having a surveyor on and an engineer and a trout guy, you know, we're golden. And guys got everybody's
shape.
got experience. This is awesome. Okay, Smith Sisters. David did that and got the report. We talked about that last time. Thank you, David, on that one. That is property owned by New Hampshire Audubon. Nostrum.
Yeah, Jeff and I went out last Saturday. We did not finish, as he said. It was a long day. We spent about 4 hours on the property. It was a beautiful day.
Just to back up, this is a farm out. It's really our only farm in town, actually, out off of Grant Road, western part out by me, actually.
Yeah, it was nice. We got about 3/4 of the way done. We started off in, looking for exclusionary markers. We only found one. There was one that was buried, and then 2 others that we know where they are, but where they belong, but we couldn't find them.
Oh, no, we found
Did
3.
we find 3?
We found 3, and the one in the where it looks like they probably tilled one up. I know the last time I saw it, it was bent over. But the other 3 we found, 2 still had a cap on them, and 1 didn't. But 1 was sticking up a little bit, and the other 2 were buried. But one is not there. Jeff, the landowner, Cantera, he didn't think any of them were there, that they had ever been set. So, and we didn't walk him around and show him afterwards. So 3 of the 4 exclusion area markers are still there.
Is that a Doucette survey?
It is.
We posted about 20 signs or so out on the greater property. And we got most of the south and east areas covered. But we're going to go back and wrap things up next week.
So what signs were you putting up? Just
The
conservation land?
Conservation easement signs.
Yeah.
Yep.
We have both. We have ones for easements and we have one for the fee properties. They're confusing because they look. I get confused. They look identical. The words are slightly different, but they're very similar.
Yeah. We got out.
What is the rule? Can you go on that property? just walking through it, or is it considered trespassing because it is private property?
There's a public access, there's two public access areas, one that abuts other town and TNC land or
On the east side?
on the east side.
The
And
Tuttle Swamp, so there's a big,
Tuttle.
huge wetland
Tuttle is
system
there,
on the
yeah.
east side.
so that was a question that we came up with out there. Along that easterly boundary, you know, the southerly boundary that we walked is a new subdivision line, so there's not old evidence. It crosses a field, who knows what, I don't know exactly when you're out there. And then it goes into the woods and to an pipe along. There's a fence line out there, but the fence line kind of peters out, and then the property line takes an angle kind of out toward and into the swamp and not way out in the middle of it, and then cuts back into some more old barbed wire fence. But so there's a section where, you know, we can't walk out and hang hang easement signs. I don't know that's necessary. It's definitely something Jeff is interested in having done. I say Jeff, I don't mean me. Jeff Cantera, Mr. Cantera, is interested in having done. You know, I don't know. So just so you know, there's signs and there's no
Yeah.
signs.
No, that's totally
and there's
fine,
signs.
Yeah.
Where it was obvious and evident, we placed signs, but where it wasn't, we obviously.
And I think
didn't.
that public access over there was really for the snowmobile trail that goes through there when there's snow, because they can cross Grant Road from Win Hilton's property onto Wigan Farm, cross the wetland in there, but it's, you know, we haven't had a winter where they could do that well, I don't think, for a while. So.
That was, so part of my question was, is the limit of the public access easement. So if someone comes in there from the woods and they see a conservation easement sign, I guess if you're knowledgeable, I guess you'll know that you're on notice that you're no longer on town-owned property, on someone else's property within an easement. But that public access right does end. And I don't know if that should be signed, you know, as in like, you're not supposed to come through the woods and cross. I'm not sure.
I guess that would be a question for Jeff, if he wants,
it signed.
Jeff Cantera, if he wants something put along that line, if he's had issues. You can't, it's hard to get to that unless it's winter, right?
Right.
You can't actually access it by going through it. You can't.
I mean, I've walked across there in the summer in the swampy area, hopping, sedge.
But it's not getting a lot of, not like a lot
No,
of
I
people.
wouldn't think there would be a bunch of people out
lot
there.
of
It's
people
really
It's
hard.
not a hiking trail, I
Yeah.
would think.
Because he has electric fences and various.
Yeah, not out that far, but
Right, but.
further in, there's probably several hundred feet, 400 feet maybe or so of woods before you get to his electric fences.
Well, he hasn't as yet asked, I don't think, for any kinds of signs, but we could.
Yeah, he's just mentioned the perimeter, really.
Yeah. So you haven't done the other side, which is butts the Clark. Is it butts
Nope.
the Clark
Correct.
land on the other side, right?
That's what we have to go back
Yeah, we
and do.
came up the road. They're his lot corners, but we do have easement, and so down where it gets to the end of Jan Lane, didn't really find necessarily with 100% confidence those two corners down
Two
there.
ends.
Or I don't think the corner at Jan Lane, as it goes around the house that's an out parcel.
Do you think the exclusion area pin needs to be reset, the one that's missing? Or is it clear enough roughly where the?
I don't think it's clear where it is because it's in the middle of like a tilled area.
Yeah.
But I don't know that it's like a matter of importance necessarily. I don't
Certainly
know.
not an emergency.
It's not like he's about to build a building.
Yeah.
Right.
Out
He can
there.
till it, because he could till inside or outside the exclusion area. So it doesn't-
Exactly,
okay.
and it's in an active
Yeah.
field. It's actually kind of surprising. One of the other ones is still there. The other two are relatively safe.
Yeah.
The one sticking up, you wouldn't too far that you can see.
Yeah.
Um,
So, yeah. So that's the kind of importance of to put on the notes is what,
What you
where
can
the
see.
pins are, like,
Yeah.
what
we
you
took
can see.
pictures, Melissa took
Yeah.
pictures of where they are.
Yeah, okay.
So is that part of the easement monitoring, is confirmation of those pins?
I think we were doing that, yeah.
I try to do it because we are volunteers and we've changed, and so it's nice to then let people know where those corners are, because in 5 years, all the issues that seem to crop up are because we've lost track of I don't mean we, I mean the greater we, because it happens to other towns and land trusts too, but.
Right.
Yeah, if you don't, you know, it's like, do we need tons of signs, but if you don't, you lose track of where everything is, and
Yeah.
then it's you just run into problems.
Especially as people transition out, in
Yeah.
and out of.
Yeah, so,
And there are carcinite markers, like the orange posts you see next to survey markers. They're around some different easement rights areas. You know, the public access easement has carcinite markers. They're hundreds and hundreds of feet apart, but they're, you know, where we walked, we did observe the ones that had been placed there are still there on the side we were on. So there's still some of the interior of the side we were on that we didn't go view. Jeff had mentioned that he thinks a couple of them might be gone. To protect, I guess, him and us, those, if they are gone, might be worth replacing, because they're different uses. You know, like don't mow certain times a year past these markers. You know, those might be worth it, because they are using the fields. We didn't get to those interior ones.
that's the most complicated easement we have. And that was one of the ones I wondered if we thought we should continue to monitor, because it's complicated. But what do you guys can just tell us know next time if you've.
Yeah, I guess for complicated in shape or size or use, you mean? Or
Yeah, because it's got various different areas,
Yeah.
and you're supposed to, like, if they're not allowed to mow here, but they are here, you're supposed to look at that.
Right, yeah, we could clearly see that in the wetland area. It wasn't mowed. And you can clearly see that outside of that.
Yeah,
It's definitely mowed.
Once you hit the tree line.
Yeah, and like down that low where the culvert crosses the old roadway there, it's clearly not mowed. There's shrubs and stuff growing in there even. But, you know, if the markers are gone, we don't know if it hasn't been mowed, but it was mowed 5 years ago, but 30 feet into where they weren't supposed to mow. You know what I mean? So now that the marker's gone, they just continue to mow it, because that's appears to be where the edge should be now. So, like I said, we
So
didn't see
if
those
you all
markers.
have to reset missing monuments, is there one surveyor that the town uses, or?
No, well, no, we've had different ones. Doucette Survey's done a number of surveys, but we usually try to go back to the surveyor that did the original survey.
Oh, I
If
see.
they're still around. I think that's
Gotcha.
always the best.
It's the most cost-effective method
Cost
typically, is to use the original
gotcha.
surveyor. Except I can't recommend that we use the original surveyor in that case, because I am the original surveyor in that case. So,
Yeah,
or my
you
firm is, I
abstain
should
from
say.
that, but, yeah.
So, I always, I recommend the people in town anyway.
Well, if you could, when you finish, let us know what your recommendations are in terms of any follow-up to do there.
Yeah. I know I personally set those carcinite markers anyway.
All right, thanks for doing that one. Bald Hill Reservation, Jeff and Juliana did that one. We talked about that one last time. That's I think a pretty straightforward one for us to do. It's owned by CELT, so. Gaziano is the new piece they acquired, the Southeast Land Trust, and I did that one. It's also very straightforward, very easy to do. Schneer and Silverman are both out there. They abut that whole road system or the Class A trail system and those other properties, and they're very straightforward. Those are very easy to monitor. So then there's 3 town-owned properties that have easements on them, and we monitor the Piscassic River Loiselle. Sam has been doing that for a number of years. Wigan Farm is monitored by the state of New Hampshire, and Dearborn is monitored by the state of New Hampshire. Dearborn, the Fish and Game has the easement. The Wigan Farm, LCHIP, and DES hold, and Fish and Game is kind of involved too. That one's kind of but I went out with the state when they monitored Dearborn and Wigan Farm this year, and there were some somewhat minor, but there were some abutter third-party issues of, tends to be like over-the-line stuff, dumping stuff. So I wrote a letter to an abutter to the Dearborn, and I wrote a letter to an abutter to the Wigan Farm about that kind of stuff. Because the state tells us you're supposed to do that. So I did that, and I copied the state. And copied Bart and Steve, so it's in the file. So again, relatively minor. The Dearborn property, there's one issue that never really sort of got resolved. The Dearborn property is on Grant Road, and there's a 50-foot right-of-way, or not, it's a 50-foot ownership that goes back, what, like 100, 200 feet, I forget.
Like
500 feet, 500 feet.
Yeah.
And then it's horizontal, so it's mostly backland, but there was this 50-foot piece. And Fish and Game got the easement from Mr. Dearborn in 2000, I'm gonna get, no, 2000, I think. And prior to that, there was a gravel driveway that Mr. Dearborn allowed to the abutter of this 50-foot. So the gravel driveway comes off of Grant Road right on the 50-foot piece and goes into the abutting driveway. So that was there before the Fish and Game easement, even though Fish and Game didn't really, I don't think, sort of recognize that it was there or understood it was there or whatever. Nobody ever cared it was a driveway to this abutting lot. In 2016 or so, Mr. Dearborn passed away around that time, and the estate donated the property to the town.
Or the family did.
The family did, the family. So that was around 2016, and almost at the same time, the abutting property sold to like a contractor, and the driveway got paved. So there's no, never was any kind of right-of-way agreement between Mr. Dearborn and the abutter, and there never was an agreement with Fish and Game,
Written.
and then with the town.
No written agreement.
No written agreement. Yeah, probably, sure. So the Conservation Commission met with Fish and Game, and everybody talked about it, and the abutters, and everybody talked about it, and the Conservation Commission hired a surveyor, Scott Boudreau, to survey what potentially would be the right-of-way for the driveway piece, and wrote up the description. And then, for some reason, it just never got done. So that process sort of stopped for whatever reason. That's fine. Around a couple years ago. So then I came along and I went out with the state, and they said, "Well, what happened with this? The driveway's here. It's paved. What happened?" And I said, "I don't know what happened." So anyway, long story short, I'm working with Fish and Game to restart the process, and basically we just need to draft a right-of-way deed and have the town approve it, have the abutter approve it, because it would be from the town to the abutter at this point. And Fish and Game needs to approve it. So one of those things that just, has to get done. So I'm working on that. And then Piscastic Loisel is, again, we own the property, has an LCHIP, and LCHIP requires that you monitor properties that has an LCHIP, so we've been doing that. And that's one we talked about last time, where you don't typically monitor your own property. So we can talk about whether we think we should farm that one out or keep
Is that an annual monitoring?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, all these we do annually. So we have, now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then if we want to, we go out with, well, we don't do the Hilton, so we actually do 7 ourselves. And then we go out with the state if we want to, and sell it if we want to. That's 3 more. So, yeah, it's not so much going out on the walk; it's writing the report and that kind of thing. So,
You have a template, I would imagine, for the report. So
yeah, we created it's the same one for all the easements now. So at least we have that. And
the old ones. We used to use the old one and walk the same route almost, kind of.
right.
Similar, maybe different directions and stuff. And so you could use a lot of the similar language that you used the previous year if the condition hadn't
Cut
changed
and
much.
paste.
To a certain extent,
yeah, so I don't know if you have any thoughts about whether y'all feel like we can keep doing the same amount that we do.
I mean, for Piscastic Loisel, I'm not opposed to giving it up, but kind of have it to a science at this point.
Yeah,
I think it's
we've
about
been doing
4
it.
hours with the report.
Yeah, exactly. Once you've done it, it's really quick.
4 years now.
Yeah. And there is, as I mentioned, a little bit of a downside when you farm it out, because you still then have to spend a bunch of time with the follow-up. So I sort of have mixed feelings about it all. So
I always like the ease of the ones that they did, but then you wonder what's going on out there, especially on like Hilton, where no member of the commission had really, besides Wyndham himself, had set foot on the property in years.
That's why I went, because,
I always wonder what it was like out there, you know.
yeah, and there's actually stuff in there that, I guess if we'd read the report, you know, and followed up, there was like stuff we were supposed to have sort of talked to them about. So I kind of sort of wrapped all it in one and said, you know, this is fine, or maybe you should do this a little differently, or we got this pin on the abutting. I don't know.
What's the time of year that, are they crunched up into like prior to leaf out, or?
We tend to do them in the fall, like after leaf,
Yeah.
October, November, December, but they can be done anytime. We just happened to, you know, most of them spilled over into this year, but
Yeah.
we can really do them anytime. It's just, we have a lot of wet, so anytime between April and August, it's pretty wet.
Nostrum, where we were, it would be good when it's frozen solid.
It would be, yeah.
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 I'd
So
rather do it
there's
on
no
snowshoes
like
than the ice-
rolling
the ice.
seasonal that you have to do? It's
No.
just,
No, you
You-
can do it every year. You can do it in winter. They do it, you know, the sort of the best management practices are really, you should be able to see the ground. So
Yeah.
you don't want a lot of snow.
yeah.
Some of the places are really hard to get to without ice, though.
Yeah.
That's a tricky thing to do, is have, I mean, a lot of wetlands don't even really freeze until later in the winter, February.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Around here, anyway. If they do it all.
But we don't have to decide now, but if people are still willing to, David, you're still willing to do the sisters, and the ones I've been doing are pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I'd love to go out and do one sometime, so if somebody's headed out,
Yeah.
join you.
Great.
I think we're gonna go, are we gonna try to do the other half?
I think we talked about next weekend, right?
Yeah, not this weekend, but the following.
Okay.
Yeah, let me
The
know.
west side of Nostrum. We just have to clear that with Jeff, I think.
Oh, I'll email him.
Great. Good. And just I had just as an FYI, so one of the things I'm trying to do is put anything that can be public, like the deeds, the property surveys, not typically the monitoring reports if it's a private land, because you typically don't put those up for the public space. But so I'm trying to get this all on the Conservation Commission website. So if one of us wants to go out to a property, you can just go there and look at and read a little bit about it. You'll see the deed, and if there is some other information that's public, like the map of where it is, that kind of thing. And I'm doing that for the fee properties too. So because right now was scattered to the winds. Most of it's a little bit of a hard copy, and it's on one digital file that gets passed from chair to chair. So I thought it was time that we got the stuff up on the website.
Great idea.
Or at least if the town has a digital repository or somewhere where town data is stored that's
Yeah.
secure.
Yeah, we still
Even
haven't
if it's
figured.
not on the website, just like it's
Exactly, yeah.
in their database.
We
I
don't
know
have
that there's a survey of, because there wasn't a modern or current-ish survey of the full perimeter in Nostrum. And I'll pull it off the registry website and give you a PDF of it. I didn't do that the other day.
Yeah.
I thought it might have been in the folder.
It wasn't.
No, I know I've printed it once before, but I don't have a digital copy at the moment. But I'll grab one to make sure I have that.
Well, that's one thing, is having BART as staff, they can pull anything off the registry for us.
Oh,
They
I'll
can get
you know what I'll
digital
do? I'll
files.
shoot him the
Yeah,
I'll shoot
they
him the
can get
plan number,
digital-
then he can pay for it.
Right,
and stuff.
digital, and then they'll print the hard copy too if we want it for the hard file. So,
Yeah, okay.
That'll be
I'll
helpful.
email that to Bart.
and just as an FYI, we have 4 executory interests that the town holds. One is Clark 3, which the Clark farm is in Lee, or Epping and Lee on Camp Lee Road, and they conserved the east side of the road last year or the year before, and we contribute quite a bit of money. And that property abuts part of the Nostrum farm, so there's a big chunk. So we don't do anything with that. We're just the executory interest holder. We do get the report from CELT that does the monitoring. And then Dodds is at the corner of Neal Mill Road and Grant Road, and CELT holds that easement as well. So we gave some money to help conserve that piece, and we got the report from that. And then Tucker is part of the Piscasset Greenway that is owned by CELT, and we hold the executory interest because we gave some money to that, but there is no conservation easement. So we don't have to do any monitoring, which is the way I like it. Yeah.
So why wouldn't there be a conservation easement on it?
Because it's owned by the Southeast Land Trust, and in that situation, they didn't get an I don't think they have an LCHIP grant for that one. It was just, I forget where the funding all came from, but we gave some money, so there was no, I guess nobody thought there needs to be a conservation easement,
Right.
since they're a conservation organization and it's part of their bigger conserved land. So town lawyers, towns tend to want to have some ownership if they give money.
Right.
And I have, and I know other people have, it's a lot of work if we get the easement too, because then we have to monitor it. But if an executory interest is enough, that's great, because then we don't have to do anything.
Yeah, I know all the properties that our land trust owned in fee, they wouldn't have a conservation easement on it per se, but LCHIP and ARM would require warranty deed language that essentially was like a conservation easement as far as what could and couldn't be done. But if PLC owned it, there was not a separate easement on it held by another party. And towns always had executory interests if they were putting money in it.
And then there's a fourth one is on the Richmond property, which is on Langs Lane. There's a pond, and CELT holds that easement. And we are technically an executory interest holder there too.
Oh, are we really? I didn't know about that.
Yeah, it's way back in the easement deed. It's a little bit, it's not worded quite the same, but it is it's a back, like if CELT fails at it, we take over the.
The pond where the fishing derby is? Really? Oh, so what year was that done? Yeah.
It's a while ago. I don't have the.
Yeah, you don't have to. I was just.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever knew that before.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I had to remind CELT of that yesterday. Anyway, all right. Well, those are all easements. Lots to do there. Let me just see if I had anything else related to that. No. Okay, land stewardship and conservation. Sliding Rock Recreation and Conservation Area, we got the LRAC grant. We're working through that. We did have John Roy do the trees, the hazard trees in December. I was out there yesterday and someone sawed up and took away a lot of the wood.
Thank you.
I guess.
Was it good firewood or was it?
Yeah, it was oak. Yeah.
Oh, jeez. Somebody was happy.
Yeah, so, okay. I did go out there, so that was one piece of our grant from LRAC. I did go out with Lou Shelley yesterday. He's the day before. He's the trails consultant we took him out to determine if the existing quarter-mile trail, if you haven't been out there, it's very flat. It's kind of rooty in some places. If it could be made into an accessible trail, so improve the tread, so somebody in a wheelchair or a walker or cane or any kind of mobility site could access that trail a little bit better, because it's an incredible spot. It goes out to the confluence of the Piscassic River.
It is pretty.
It's really nice. And so he's done a lot of accessible trails. He does the actual construction and design. So he's going to do a little report and provide recommendations on whether he thinks that would work. He thinks you could put down fabric, almost like landscape fabric, and then you put essentially hard pack. So anyway, he'll make recommendations and included approximate cost if we wanted to do it. They're not cheap.
Yeah.
But he doesn't think it would have to be excavated, which is a part of the cost. So it would just be superficial placement of material. So. And that will include potentially parking spaces, because right now it kind of drops off and the access is a little bit weird. And I think he's actually going to do a couple side places where people might be able to get out and get a view.
So, Melissa knows this. On Lamprey Street, they're replacing the telephone poles. And I had this idea, and I raised it with my wife, and she was like, don't go down that path. You have too many other projects at home to be doing. But I was wondering what happens to those poles. and you guys might know, but I looked online and it said frequently they're donated because they can't use them again, so they can donate them out. And I was just thinking something like that, and I don't know how toxic these poles are because they're treated, but I wonder if you could use them as guides and just, you know, put fabric down and then fill in between the poles and create that sort of, you know, fully accessible path to wheelchairs or handicapped or whatever.
Yeah, there were a couple places where we would need some sort of crib to prevent the gravel from sliding off
Going
into
off,
the, so, yeah, it depends on how old they were and if they're the old style creosote.
They are.
Yeah, that might be a little dicey by aquatic areas, but it's a good idea to use. Okay, I think that's everything. We're going to work on the kiosk, interpretive panels, and do a little erosion control, and then another kayak rack out there. Any questions on Sliding Rock? Wigan Farm. So the wind blew over our kiosk. The massive 8x8 pressure-treated posts, they basically just snapped at the base, and they were, I think, rotting to a week. And it's an extremely top-heavy type of kiosk, so I think it's toast. So we have to add a rebuilding of a kiosk. And I met a wonderful neighbor out by my way. He lives near Wigan Farm. Victor, he and I met out there. He's retired, and he's very interested in helping. He's a mechanical engineer, very skilled at various things. So I went through all the list of things, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and he's willing to help do stuff. So he can do some brush cutting. So there's some invasive along the stone wall and around the signs, and he's willing to do stuff like that. So, and we also chatted a little bit about the bridge. So this is where your comments come in, Jeff. The footbridge is a little kittywampus and funky in one side, and it's slippery, so we need to do something about the ramp. But it also, there's a boardwalk on each side, and that boardwalk needs to be extended. So I originally thought we had to sort of just rebuild the whole bridge, but as Vic pointed out, the foundations that are in the wetland are actually pretty sturdy, and the frame is pretty good shape, and so why disturb the wetland and take it out when you could probably just maybe rebuild the decking and possibly shore up or redo the rails and then extend the boardwalk. We probably still need a wetlands permit to extend the boardwalk because it's a wet area. So it's one thing we don't need to decide tonight, but we probably should figure out how we might go ahead and try to do that this year.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that on if you have more
that would be awesome.
detail and all that. So the Wetlands Bureau has made a permit by notification to simplify things like this, especially rehab of existing structures. And regional permit reviewer is 2 buildings away from me.
Oh, well,
on the
this is
street.
awesome.
So just let me know
All right.
when you're doing stuff, what you're thinking.
Great. Well, when we get to our full list, we'll put that's awesome. And
It would be nice to extend that as you go in,
Yeah.
because it's really muddy, right?
yeah, there's
And
probably
that
15
or 20 feet
Yep.
before, you know, through the brush
Yeah.
there.
and I think it can just be the same kind of boardwalk. It's just sort of flat there, so that'd be great, Sam. The kiosk, you know, we've got different designs of kiosks. We got similar bigger ones in some other properties, but if you've been out to Heron Point Sanctuary, the kiosk that we just did the new panels on, it's a very different design. It's, I think, a Scout. It could have been an Eagle Scout many years ago. We don't know, but it's a much simple. Well, I don't know if it's simpler design, but it's a lighter design, and it's sort of like this. It's got 3 sides and a roof, and I wondered if that wouldn't be a better design than building a massive, 8x8 pressure-treated posts, which the same thing might happen, and they're expensive now. So we need to think we have plenty of time. We're not going to be able to build a kiosk. Maybe we could find an Scout to do
I
as
like
an
the
Eagle
one we have
project.
at Kaskaskia L.
Yeah,
that's-
yeah.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
I don't,
We built that one with the fellow that wrote the big tree book.
Kevin, yeah.
Yeah.
His are pretty beefy.
Yeah.
I've done several with him. Yeah, they're very nice.
I mean, not necessarily material-wise, but
Mhm.
I don't know if we need a three-sided one.
Yeah.
You know?
Does anybody have an interest in researching that? Anyway, we'll talk about the full list, but keep that in mind. I just wanted to bring it up at this point, then we're going to get to our full list in a second. We did get a request to have a geocache that just came in by email this week. So, get my little email here. Woman Becky Franks would like to, she's very involved in geocache. She lives in Newmarket. She has worked with CELT on these, and the one that she's involved with is people use GPS devices to find the geocaches. So this one is very small, 1-inch long metal tube. 1 inch is very small. That hangs on a short string from a tree branch. And inside the tube is a paper log which other geocachers sign when they find the container. I would place a container in a tree near the parking area to minimize any disruption to the habitat. She wants to do this at Wigan Farm. So at Wigan Farm, where the parking area is, that 2 acres is outside the Fish and Game easement, and so the reason we did that is so we could have a parking lot and kiosk and do sort of infrastructure stuff. So I said I would bring this up to see if we were okay with her putting such a thing on the Wigan Farm in that area. Seems okay to me. It seems she seems like she knows what she's doing, ethical. She's got all the information in terms of geocaching, and pretty
Yeah, I
small.
think if we kept it in that area,
And within that,
you know,
She might
either
have-
in the trees that are along the road or,
yeah,
you know.
she's not gonna be able to cross the wetland, so it either has to be along the road or maybe a shrub right by the edge there. So, any issues, concerns? Okay, tell her it's a go.
Yep.
Okay, sounds good. All right.
Elaine, I hate to interrupt.
Yeah.
I have to leave. I have a part-time job that I go to after my full-time job.
All right, thanks for coming. Appreciate it.
You get older, you didn't do as much, but why?
Thank you. See you. See you, Colin. All right, so let's go move on. I already talked about the Dearborn driveway right away. So the last thing I had was I had put together 2 things. The annual report, which is something the chair or the commission does. The chair does it usually. So it's in your packet. And I don't know if anybody had a chance to read it, but if anybody had any...
I did, and I
did.
want to say, you did a great job.
Oh,
It's awesome.
Well, we all did a lot.
It is,
So
it
it's
is.
very impressive what we're all doing together.
A lot of stuff.
Great, and we have a lot of partners in town. I think we tried to highlight in the report the DPW and rec department and different people that we work with. So, and LRAC, the grants. So, yeah. So, but anyway, I tried to, recognize everybody. Really appreciate everybody's work. So, thank you.
We appreciate your work too.
Yeah, well, thank you. A couple of things that I included. Let me talk about, well, we're going to talk about projects. So the last thing that I put together was, I have extras here, is, I basically listed the town properties that we really focus on and some of the projects that I think we're either in the process of working on or that we may want to think about doing in 2023 or it may carry into 2024. So if we could just sort of go through those fairly quickly. And what I was looking for is to see if anybody wants to help with certain things. So Sam's already offered on one. So Sliding Rock is really the grant that we got that we're implementing. And I'm working on, with Lou Shelley on the trail, and Amy's going to take care of the kayak rack, and I'll work with the graphic designer on the kiosk interpretive panels, which I've done with some of the other kiosks. But we want to do a little erosion control fencing, which is, would take like an hour or
You're
so.
just talking about silt fences?
Yeah, basically there's some stakes and some silt fencing, and we have a little funding to do that if somebody wanted to essentially it would mean going and buying the stuff and, you know, putting it up. And I certainly can show you where that goes, but anyway, we can go through the list, and if somebody thinks they might like to do that, that would be awesome. Piscasserio Lizelle, we've got pretty well. Melissa's in charge there, doing a great job, taking care of the sign. So that's all set. Wigan Farm, so these are the things that we just were talking about. So the new kiosk, it'd be great to have somebody who wanted to, you know, research the designs, come up with a cost estimate, maybe talk to the scouts to see if it could be an Eagle Scout project, or we could talk to Kevin Martin and see what his cost is. So there's that project. Again, if we're going to need to do new interpretive panels, which we were anyway, so I'm happy to do that. It's kind of something I like to do. Sam, am I going to put you next to that rebuild and extend the bridge?
Yeah, so what's needed on the rebuild aspect?
So we kind of have to figure out what we want to do, you know, essentially. So do we need to shore up? So so we looked at it. So when you cross the bridge, you go up the ramp, you're on the top, and the ramp going down, the right side has settled a little bit, so the railing kind of curves in.
Okay.
Maybe it's fine. Maybe everybody's, you know, it's just slightly funky. And so maybe that whole part, and whether we want to rebuild any of the railing, and then for sure extending the boardwalk. So measuring how much distance we want to go on each side, and you can kind of tell just by the mud.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so then cost out, like, what are you going to use? You know, stringers, pressure treated decking, what would be the cost? And then,
Does that one have railings? Because it's tall. Like what?
Yeah.
I don't know why that one has. Because a lot of small footbridges like that, they're low, don't really have railings.
yeah, I think it's because it was over the wetland.
It's an added complication.
It's added, I don't know if we rebuilt it, if it had to be that high. I think it needs some railing, but I don't know if it needs to be that, it's pretty tall.
I think if you put a railing, it should be a certain height, so you don't lean on it and fall over it or something.
Yeah. But maybe, Sam, if you can just, you know, take a look,
Let's take a look.
see what you
I
think.
like the one we did at Piscasserio Lizelle.
Yeah, just the bumper on
Yeah.
you just do a little bumper
a
on the
little-
side.
That's what I was.
Get rid of the railing and just do the bumper.
Yeah, I don't know.
If you can see if that's allowed, like if there's some height of a bridge that we're supposed to have a higher railing on. Sometimes there's a code.
Yeah, I can do a little thing.
I will say though that Wigan Farm I think is a lot higher traffic than Piscasserio.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of kids and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
the
We may
thing is,
need a
we don't,
railing.
I think it might have been to also keep people from jumping off into the wetland. So it's sort of to say, like, keep people on the straight and narrow, and
Something dead in there. Like a turkey or something.
there's something dead in there.
Yeah, it's like right up. It's like right next to, almost under the bridge there on the
Wow.
on the road side of it. Like maybe a turkey got hit by a car and wandered over there and died.
Oh, jeez,
wow.
okay.
Like right there. That's part of the reason I thought my kids were like, turkey, dead turkey. And I turned and I was like, whoop.
I'm hoping to do some invasive work this year, and we'll schedule some work days sometime, probably in April for sure, around Earth Day, so I can do that. There are these signposts, and there's 2 out by the wetland that need to be moved and reset, and Vic said he would help with that, so I'm just going to put his name, even though some of us will help, you know, if we do that, but he would be interested in helping with that. And he was also interested, I think, in weed trimming, so I'm going to put his name there too. Even though, again, he wants to work with other people, so.
I would be glad. I'm backing you up, but back up on Sliding Rock.
Oh,
Um,
you're going to help with the erosion
do the
control?
erosion,
That's
sure.
awesome, Tom. Thank you.
You'll be sorry.
Okay, good. So that's Wigan Farm. Shanda Park. So this is one, Sam, you know, we're going to do the community oyster garden. Do you want to be involved in that, or do you want somebody else to sort of be involved in that, or?
It's actually like, we just need to tell them where they can anchor it.
Yeah, that we don't need to, right? Do you want to do that as part of the,
Yeah, I mean, if we have their contact.
Yeah, I can get that to you, but I just thought it should wrap into Shanna Park and the other things there.
We probably just need to tell them where the tether
Yeah.
cage is too.
Yeah,
That's what it sounded like, yeah.
yeah, okay.
There's some rings in there, like
Yeah.
Okay.
in the rock.
I think they still have the pole range in the boats.
Yeah.
Seems like a good spot.
Yeah. Yeah, and then of course the bigger issue of Shannon Park we can talk about another time. So Dearborn, one of the things I thought we might want to consider for Dearborn is a baseline report where you, because I don't think there is anything in terms, like what we have for all these easements. So you take photos of the corners and where the monuments are and anything that's present. So there'd be a photo of the driveway and maybe some maps of the property showing the wetlands and all that kind of stuff. So Tom left. I know he's interested in that kind of thing, or he's just stepped out. But I don't know what you thought about that. We can hire someone to do it, but that would be, thousands of dollars. Or if you think it's worth doing, do you think we need to do it?
Does the state do that? Does the state have some sort of documentation already from when they created their easement?
I don't think so, but I can.
Because I know they've done management out there, right?
Yeah.
Didn't they do some rabbit habitat or something like that?
Yeah, with Mr. Dearborn.
There's got to be a template somewhere that somebody would have that.
Well, we have templates, but whether they actually specifically have a baseline for that property, good thing. I guess I should check with them first. I can do it.
You'd think that they did. They monitor it every
My
year.
sense is that they
so.
might not because they didn't know about the driveway. So I don't know.
True. Or they knew about it, but they didn't know it was paved.
Yeah. I mean, I've done those before, so they're like, I can do that. But.
Yeah, I have no. I mean, I can assist on. I'm more than happy to walk boundaries, help people find monuments, and to take pictures of them and stuff. I know it can
I
be
think we
tricky
could
for
do that one
folks.
ourselves. We just, some. Going to the next page. So this is the one where I think we would need a team. I guess I put mine in there because I'm pretty familiar with those properties. But so Falls Brook is, we have the Piscassic River Loisel property, and then we have another piece that's associated with a subdivision that no one's ever done anything with, but essentially is conservation land. It's just been sitting there. And then the Waterworks Department, the original Waterworks Department, has land along Falls Brook. And then we acquired lands on the other side, a couple pieces that are also just sitting there. So we really need to do, a boundary walk, take photos, look for monuments, and then also decide what we want to do with those properties. If there's a trail opportunity there. It's hard to get across Falls Brook. It's a pretty wide wetland, but.
Is that the Audubon one out 152?
So yeah, it's there. The Piscassic Loisel connects to the Audubon in the back.
Right, yeah.
Not the Smith sisters, but the Quox one, and then it all connects to all this other land.
Yeah.
So that's kind of that might be more of like a team effort, because it's kind of a big effort out there to do that. So I don't know if anybody's particularly interested in joining in on that.
Yeah, I'm on that trail a lot. I'll
okay.
join you on that.
So you had been
I'll
out there
probably
too.
dive into some of the other ones too, but
Yeah.
I just want to familiarize
Sure.
myself with
Yeah.
some of them first.
Is that Leadline Trail still out there? The old,
Which one?
I don't know, we call it the Leadline Trail. Like, if you go out, you
Yeah, I
take a
think
right,
it's-
and then you go through the wicked rooty, like, difficult area, and then there's the trail that heads to Durham that way.
Yeah, on the other side of the brook.
It's no, it's still on the right-hand side of the brook.
Yeah.
Still,
The
so
north side.
you don't cross the bridge and you stay.
Right.
There's the road they built to the well.
Right.
And then you go past the well, and it's really. I know it used to. I haven't been out there like in 15 to 20 years, but it's all rooty and rough. Then you get to essentially what's a road almost that goes toward the horse farm in Durham.
Right. So I think what we want to do is map that kind of stuff. We want to map where the existing trails are, whether they're rogue or we don't really have any official trails out on that side. So, and do the boundaries and put up boundary signs because it's town-owned properties, these conservation signs. So I think it's kind of a team effort. And best if there's slightly frozen ground and no snow. So maybe late winter.
Yeah.
Might be a good time to do that work out there.
So is the town-owned property goes all the way out to Smith Sisters? Is that where you're saying? Back behind?
No, well, no, no, to Quox.
Oh, it goes to Quox.
So Piscataqua and Quox are like this,
Right.
and then the Carolyn Drive piece, and then there's the Falls
The
Brook,
snowmobile
the
trail that goes
waterworks.
out through
Yeah.
the back of, or whatever that trail is
Yeah.
these days, that goes out back
And the
through the
Waterworks
Audubon.
Department said the Conservation Commission can take over those waterworks lands.
Does the trail still cross there, the Follett's Brook?
Not
There was
really.
kind of a bridge
It's-
type thing out there.
Grown up. That's where David goes out that way to do the sisters. You go out to Falls Brook there in the back.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, so let's keep moving. So we talked about easement monitoring already. Connect to Protect, that meeting, we've talked about that. Cole and I put Cole at stream crossings, and I was kind of hoping you would be interested in just staying on top of that with Lindsay,
Mm-hmm.
because you're so experienced with that. Would that
Yeah.
be? I mean, there's nothing really to do necessarily right now, but just
Yeah.
to be a liaison to that
Yeah.
and come back, you know, if there's anything.
Yeah,
that
I'll
we can
get
help
with her on the SAIDS database and stuff.
That'd be awesome. Thank you.
Does that database, are you using a pop level to get flow direction? Is that what you're using the level for? You had mentioned it briefly. I didn't know if she mentioned using a GPS unit and whatnot. I was wondering if they were collecting elevation data, or if if the LiDAR data that's available these days is good enough usually to determine the direction of a watershed. But I didn't know if you guys were you mentioned pop level, and I didn't know if it was literally just to say it flows east across the road.
Yeah, so the pop level was just to get the road elevation to the
Above the
stream bed elevation.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense too.
Yeah, and also then gather the culvert size
Yeah.
data and so on. So, yeah, that's what we used it for. And I don't know, I know they updated the protocol since I was doing it, so there might be some other criteria that they're collecting as well. But I think it's faster now than it was in the past. I mean, it used to take us like a half an hour to do a site. Now I think they're down to like 15 minutes to go out and survey a site.
Yeah, I know we did a ton for the state at one point, but all they cared about was where is it, what size is it, and what direction does it flow.
Right.
They weren't asking us to tell them the height of the road as compared to the elevation of the bottom of the culvert, but that would be good information to have for sure.
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to take bankful widths and that sort of thing up and downstream, so you really see how it changes the dynamic of the stream channel.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I think that would be great to have all that for Newmarket. It'd be nice to know which ones we think we can improve in terms of open bottom box culvert or better passage.
Yeah.
It'd be good to get that. That'd be really good.
I mean, I think it really helps with grant writing
Yeah.
too.
And isn't there a ton of money for this, like specifically for stream crossing and culverts?
Yeah, there is, but you have to have a
Good project.
resource concern.
Yeah, have to, yeah.
You know, and if a lot of the money is going to cold water fisheries, but there could be other wildlife aspects to it as well.
Yeah, we have rare turtles, that's our.
Yeah, NIFWIF is a big funding source, National Fish and Wildlife Foundation.
And the last one is sort of outreach, mostly just to capture kind of what we're doing. So again, I mentioned I'm working on the web pages for the town web pages. Monthly programs, Chris has been lining those up, and Melissa does our social media and is going to do the weekly e-news, any submissions. So if you think there's things that we should put in our, the weekly e-news, again, Sam, we could help, alert about the riverfront stuff too, and yeah, yep, under conservation. So that's it. It's a lot.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I have some incentive to get out to all these properties.
Yeah, so I can't remember, did I give you the packet of the map and the list of properties and stuff?
I don't have
Did I
one.
give it, maybe I didn't get to you guys. Okay,
There-
I'll email you what we have.
Yeah, but I know on your website, you've got a lot.
I've got some of it, but I've got some more detail.
Okay, that would be
Send
great.
you.
Now, you had this thing about fishing derby funding?
Oh, right, sorry, thank you. Yes, so I sent an email to Yeah, pull it up here. Thank you, I forgot I had that. So, to Rich Height, who's the fishing derby, Newmarket Fishing Derby coordinator, I guess. So they've, this is my own feeling, and I wanted to share it with him because I wanted to put it out there early. The fishing derby is held around May, I think in May, April, May.
Father's Day weekend, isn't it?
Father's Day weekend, yeah.
Has anybody been out there at the fishing derby?
I've been once.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah.
It's like there's no room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's quite a
yeah,
sight.
so my thing with the Conservation Commission has been contributing to the fishing derby for probably more than 20 years. So it's been a long-standing endeavor. But it's $1,500 a year, and this is one of the reasons why I was sort of trying to put together the list of projects we have, because we have easements to monitor. We have more land that the town owns that comes to the Conservation Commission to steward. We have more things that are needing to be fixed. With storm events, it's getting incredibly expensive to take hazard trees down, to build things, the materials. And we might still have one or two really big land conservation projects that come down the pike that we want to save, big chunks of money. And we're not getting a lot of land use change tax anymore, because I think we're starting to get a little bit built out in terms of parcels of land that are going to come out of current use. So it seems to me that our priority needs to be with those things that we're statutorily responsible for taking care of, which are the conservation lands and the easements. And I wanted to give a lot of lead time to say, I think it might be good if you could, look for some outside sources, because, we're writing grants to get more money to fund the things that we need to do. And so, anyway, it was just and I wanted to alert him to it, but I wanted to share that with you because that was my perspective. And
Where was the 1,500 coming from?
the Conservation Fund, which is our big fund, but,
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like we have a lot of money because there's 130, but we give
can go in.
$75,000, say to a project, and,
Yeah.
and we need, it adds up for the things we're doing. We got these 2 grants from LRAC, but, I could not write those, and we could use the Conservation Fund money, but I feel like we need to stretch our money more and more. We want to give money to the, riverfront land, living shoreline, so, others are willing to have a different opinion, but I wanted to see if they couldn't start thinking about some other sources.
Yeah, so are you thinking just not funded at all?
That would
or-
be my perspective, again, because I think we need to reserve our funds for the projects we're working on. But
Yeah.
people are willing to have, obviously, a different perspective. Appreciate that.
Yeah, I don't know where they get their money from. I know they buy a lot of fish and put them in that pond, and there's 100 kids that are there. It might be that 1,500 buys
For the
all
fish,
the fish.
I think they actually wanted more last year because the fish price has gone up as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yeah. They probably can find the money where they.
It's a, if it's a popular, we look for sources of money, and there are things for certain, different pots of money for different activities. So.
Yeah, I have a fisheries background, but it doesn't seem like the Conservation Commission should be funding fishing derby. Yeah, in my opinion, it's great if you can, but again, if there's other priorities, then.
Is it something that possibly local businesses could be approached to
I
make
think they do.
donations?
I think they do go to businesses, so
They do,
they
yeah.
could just ask. Could ask for more.
I do.
It's all said and done, we still end up
Yeah.
filling up 1,500.
Yeah.
I want to say the commission kept funding it over the years. When I first started, I thought my understanding was that the commission essentially started it. Or
Well, Richie
more or less.
Shelton, who, appreciate great contribution to the community. That was Chris Schottmeyer. They were
Richie Shelton.
original. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think priorities change. Issues that we focus on change, and so.
Did you get feedback?
No, I did not hear back.
Has it been a bit?
Yeah, it's been several weeks. Yeah.
Several weeks.
December 29.
Of course, we did have a major windstorm, so who knows if, people might have missed things, so it's not a bad idea. Maybe I should resend it just to be sure, because we lost power. Yeah.
So, is that something that you're looking to get a vote on from the Conservation Committee,
No,
or?
not, it's because they usually come a few weeks before the event to ask for money, so this is why I wanted to get it a little bit ahead of the
Yeah.
game. You know,
The-
they're-
And the expending usually is voted on, so.
yeah, we do vote on the expender, but it's only if they come and ask for the funds. So. Okay, I think that's all I had, unless anybody else had anything to bring up?
No?
Okay, then we can have a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second? Second, David? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. A lot of work goes into